Hello everyone, my name is Ishan Jolly, also known as the JollyLegend, and welcome to Today I Fucked Up and some of the funniest posts of all time. So, let's get started. Today I fucked up by throwing my steak out a window. Last night, my wife's boss from a brand new job invited us over for dinner. On the drive over, my wife reiterated many times to me just how important it was to make a good impression. I scoffed and arrogantly informed my silly wife that I always make good impressions. My wife's boss is a single lady in her 50s, so it was just the three of us. We chit-chatted over drinks and salads and seemed to be really hitting it off. She laughed at my well-timed, perfectly appropriate jokes, and my wife seemed pleased. Soon, she brought out the main course, a nice, big, juicy steak for each of us. As I began to cut into my steak, I was discouraged to discover how undercooked the steak was. Now, I've had my fair share of rare steak. I prefer medium, but I can handle rare. This was several minutes on a hot grill short of rare. I probably could have resuscitated the cow had I tried. Instead, I sat there fidgeting with my knife and fork, worrying about how I was going to get away with not eating this steak. Claim veganism? No, I already feigned great enthusiasm upon seeing the steak. Just then, our hostess excused herself to the kitchen to take care of some dessert preparations. As I looked across the fancy dining room table at the open window of this third-story apartment, a cartoon light bulb appeared over my head. I knew I had to be decisive, realizing that she could return at any moment. I committed. I grabbed the steak with my hand, gently shook off the juice, and executed a perfect throw right through the center of the open window. Here's the big-time fuck-up. The window wasn't open. It was the cleanest fricking window you've ever seen in your life. That is, until my mostly raw slab of steak slammed up against it and slowly slid down, leaving a trail of bloody juice in its wake. My wife, whose steak was a nice medium rare and was unaware of my predicament, turned, jaw dropped, and stared at me like I was an alien from another planet. This look then slowly morphed into more of a "there is no place on this planet you can ever hide from me" expression of demonic anger. My wife's boss heard the thud of the steak on window impact and came quickly. She took in the scene, the steak sitting on the windowsill, the bloody trail, my empty plate, then gave me an inquisitive, puzzled look. I just didn't know what to say. It felt like a minute of silence, but was probably 3 or 4 seconds. Finally, the best I could manage was, I'm so sorry. I'm such a klutz. I don't know. I was just cutting it and it slipped. Just ask my wife. I really am a klutz, right, honey? No help coming from that direction. I'll clean this up. I can't believe this. I'm so sorry, etc., etc. Both women continued to stare at me like I'd escaped from the loony bin. As I smeared the blood around the window with my cloth napkin, dusted off the steak, and continued to mutter my incoherent explanation, I knew no one was buying the story. I knew what I had to do. I sheepishly returned to my seat and proceeded to eat every bite of that disgusting, cold, chewy, bloody raw steak. I remained pretty quiet the rest of the evening. My wife's only 2 words to me since the incident are, "I'm fine." You gotta go full Gordon Ramsay and shout, "What the fuck is this? This steak is so raw, it's eating the fucking salad." It's times like this when you should just fake a seizure. What exactly was your endgame here? Were you planning to sneak back into a property late at night to remove the steak? Or were you just hoping she'd see it and think she got a visit from the steak fairy? And of course, this one is a follow-up. Today I fucked up by allowing my husband to come to dinner at my boss's house. This actually took place a couple years ago. I just got in a brand new job that I was really excited about, so I was delighted when my boss, who I had been trying to establish a rapport with, invited me and my husband over to our home for dinner. Well, mostly delighted. My husband is, well, he's the sweetest, but he has a history of doing really dumb shit. Because of this, I was worried about him coming along. By the time the day of the dinner arrived, I had become so anxious about it that I actually floated the idea by my boss that I wasn't sure if he would be able to make it. She was clearly taken aback and responded, "Oh no, I really hope he can. I have a dinner for 3 all ready to go." Upon seeing her dismay, I assured her that I was sure he would find a way to be there. Well, we made it over to her apartment on time, and things actually started out really well. It was actually just the 3 of us, which surprised me somewhat, but made me a little less concerned about my husband, as crowds really tend to bring out his unpredictability. I had just started to finally relax and was a couple bites into a deliciously cooked steak when things took a horrible turn. My boss had just stepped into the kitchen to check on dessert when I noticed something odd out of the corner of my eye. It was one of those things where you know something strange is happening in your peripheral, but you're not sure what. You have to look over and focus your gaze to really comprehend it. I look over at my husband and see him holding a steak in his hand, hovering just an inch or 2 above his plate. Before I had a chance to fully comprehend what I was seeing and verbalize something that might have saved us all from the coming horror, he threw his steak, baseball style, across the room, straight into the dining room window. It hit the window, making a loud noise, and slowly slid down. Now, my husband does dumb shit. I already told you that. But he's not a crazy person. Usually when he does dumb shit, I at least understand what he's thinking. There's usually some semblance of rhyme or reason to the dumb shit. In this case, I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. I stared at him with what must have been the most confused look, and watched as he stared back at me, an expression of utter horror painted across his face. I couldn't make any sense of what was happening, but I also didn't have time to try. I heard the footsteps of my boss coming to see what the sound was. It suddenly sunk in that it didn't matter why he did what he did. He did it, and we were all about to come face to face with a very awkward situation. I could feel the anger flush through my face. For a brief moment, I contemplated trying to help my husband get out of this, but no. This was his dumb shitbed, and he could lie in it. Not like there was any possible recovery anyway. My boss walks in and sees a steak lying on the windowsill. There's the fucking longest, most awkward pause when we all just sit there frozen. My boss and I are staring at my husband, forcing the ball into his court as the cringe just hangs in the air like an ocean fog. He finally manages to mutter some incoherent garbage about being a klutz and even tries to get me in to back him up. I leave his ass out to dry in the deafening silence. He makes a poor attempt at cleaning the window and retrieves his steak. Mercifully, my boss asks me a question about work, and we both dive eagerly into conversation. We all resume the rest of the evening pretending that he isn't there, a sort of unspoken agreement by all that this is the only way to move forward. As soon as we got to the car, my husband turned into a nervous chatterbox trying to explain himself. Turns out the dumbass didn't like the way his steak was cooked. Rare. And get this, he thought the window was open. My husband, ladies and gentlemen, tried to chuck his steak out of a 3-story window. He thought that was a reasonable solution to being served an undercooked steak. A year or so later, my boss hosted a Christmas party for the company at a newly built home. My best friend, Jenny, was my +1. It would be amazing if he pulled it off, only to have the steak splat on the windshield of her car. Today I fucked up by drinking an entire bottle of Louisiana hot sauce at a job interview in a failed attempt to be impressive. I've had a number of job interviews recently that went poorly and did not result in securing employment. I started to think I need to do something during an interview to really stand out, be impressive, unique, and highly memorable. I thought it could be risky, but might just work out. I came up with the following idea. After concluding the interview, after the handshakes, etc., when I'm leaving the room, stop, turn around, and say, "There's one more thing you need to know about me." Then pull out a bottle of hot sauce, down the entire bottle, slam it onto the ground, and say, "I can handle the heat," nod confidently, and leave the room. Boom. I imagined that they would be really impressed and wowed by such a performance. Well, it didn't pan out like I thought it would. It was only a small bottle of hot sauce. I figured it would be no big deal to actually do. I should have tested it at home first, but I didn't. I was nervous as a bitch during the interview, but I was determined to follow through with the plan. So, I started exactly as described above. I was leaving, I turned around, maybe not with as much swagger as I imagined in my head, and I declared, "There is one more thing you need to know about me." I pulled out the hot sauce bottle, almost dropped it, and started to open the bottle. In my head, it was all one quick, confident motion, like an electric Indiana Jones. But instead, I fumbled around and had a tough time getting it open. It felt like a nightmarish eternity, but was probably only about 20 seconds. Enough time for one of the interviewers to ask me what I was doing. I didn't answer directly. Instead, after I got the bottle opened, I repeated, "There's one more thing you need to know about me," but stuttering. Then I guzzled down the entire bottle of hot sauce. I instantly regretted it. My mouth and throat felt like lava was swirling around inside me. I immediately started to gag and loudly cough. I was crying involuntarily, tears hardcore streaming down my face. I was sweating like a terrible fool. I desperately tried to scream, "I can handle the heat!" but just kept coughing before I could get anything out. The interviewers were all standing up, looking at me in horror and confusion. A few seconds before I threw up all over the floor, I knew it would happen, but tried to hold it back. I couldn't. I threw up all over the floor. It hurt as much on the way out as it did on the way in, if not more so. The vomit felt like flaming barbed wire shredding its way through my neck. I should mention a disturbing amount of fiery mucus was also leaking out of my nose uncontrollably. After I finished throwing up, I could not bear to look at the interviewers. I hoarsely mumbled an apology and started to stumble as quickly as possible out the door. I have never been more shamed in my life. I didn't get the job. Maybe next time you can just walk over to the interviewer, bear hug them from behind while leaning back so their legs are dangling in the air and scream, "I will not let you down!" Or carve numbers into your chest and yell, "You can count on me!" Or hack off your own hand and launch it into his face saying, "I'll give you a helping hand." Or chop off your own head saying, "I'm ahead of the competition." Or slap his face and yell, "Fucking zits, I own you all." So when the hell did a firm handshake and a goodbye turn into downing a bottle of hot sauce? I'm beginning to see why you don't have a job. Today, I fucked up by enraging the parents of my girlfriend by pretending not to know what a potato is. Let me tell you that I have made a bad mistake this evening. My girlfriend, who let me tell you is only my second girlfriend of all time, said that I'm invited to dinner with her and her parents. I was very aghast, nervous and bashful to be invited to such a situation, but I knew it must be done. I met them nicely, I should tell you, and it started off in a good way. The idea slapped in my mind that I should do a comic bit to make a good impression and become known to them as a person who is amusing. When I saw that baked potatoes were served, I got the idea that it would be very good if I pretended that I didn't know what baked potatoes were. That would be funny. Well, let me tell you, backfired on my face. I'll tell you how. So, first when the potato became on my plate, I acted very interested. I showed an expression on my face so as to first seem like I was confused, astounded, but in a restrained way, curious and interested. They did notice and seemed confused, but did not remark. So I asked, "This looks very interesting. What is this?" They stared at me and the mother said, "It's a baked potato." And I was saying, "Oh, interesting, a baked... what is it again?" And she was like, "A potato." And I was like, "A potato? Oh, interesting. Never heard of a potato. Looks pretty good." And then they didn't see I was clowning, but they thought I really didn't know what a potato was. So I knew I would be very shamed, humiliated, depressed, and disgusted if I admitted to making a bad joke. So what I did was to act as if it was not a joke, but I committed to the act of pretending I didn't know what a potato is. They asked me, very incredulous, Did I not know what a potato is? That I never heard of a potato? I went with it and told them, yes, I do not ever even hear of a potato. Not only had I never eaten a potato, I had never even heard the word potato. This went on for a bit, and my girlfriend was acting very confused and embarrassed by my fucked up antics. And then, the more insistent I was about not knowing what a potato was, then the parents started thinking I did know what a potato was. Well, let me tell you, I had to commit 100% at this point. When I would not admit to knowing what a potato was, the father especially began to get annoyed, and at one point said something like, "Enough is enough. You're fucking with us. Admit it." And I said, "Sir, before today, I never heard of a potato. I still don't know what a potato is, other than some kind of food. I don't know what to tell you." Well, let me tell you, he got very annoyed. I decided to take a bite of the potato, and when I did, I made a high-pitched noise and said, "Tastes very strange." That's when the father started yelling at me, and the mother kept saying, "What are you doing?" And my girlfriend went to some other room. Finally, the father said I should just get the fuck out of his house, and I said it was irrational to treat me like this just because I'd never heard of a potato before. Well, let me tell you, he didn't take that kindly. Now, in text messages, I've been telling my girlfriend I really don't know what a potato is. The only way I can ever get out of this is for them to buy it, that I don't know what a potato is. I wish I never started it, but I can't go back. I think she's going to break up with me anyway. Invite your girlfriend to meet your parents. Have your father take her aside and ask if potatoes were served at dinner with her parents. When she says yes, he looks alarmed, mutters something about wanting to keep them from him, and then never mentions the subject again. That's if he still has a girlfriend. Oh. When confronted about this horrible joke, insist it never happened with the same level of commitment. Maybe they will just think you have a brain disorder. At this point, this is the best idea. Continue to do this with something different every time you see them. So, what's this giant chair thing we're all sitting on again? Oh, a couch? It's very interesting. Tastes very strange. Get the fuck out of my house. A house? Oh, interesting. Never heard of a house. Looks pretty good. Tastes much better than the couch did. Get the fuck out of my house. A fuck. Ooh, that's interesting. Never heard of a fuck before. Looks pretty good. Tastes much saltier than the house did. Send them a bouquet of potatoes as an apology. But on the card, write, enjoy your potatoes. Potatoes in quotes, as if you still don't really believe they're real. Why'd you guys break up? Potatoes. They sound very interesting. What are they? When she tells you she's breaking up with you, tell her you don't know what a breakup is. Commit to that. Exert your dominance. But there we go. Those are some hilarious Today I Fucked Up posts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you all later. And before I end, go follow me over at twitch.tv/JollyLegend. I like to livestream quite a lot, so I would love to see you guys there. See you all later, and goodbye.